Hey everyone, I'm back with a brand new update to ZimmWriter, and this update is huge. It's so huge, I had to make a video about it. I don't make videos about every update, but this is a big update to ZimmWriter. So let's dive in and cover what's changed. The first thing you'll notice in all of the different writers, including the bulk writer, is the addition of Claude 4.5 Haiku. This is not available as an ancillary model in the ZimmWriter options, but it's available as a writing model. And this is a very powerful model. The quality is incredibly high compared to some of the GPT-4o Mini and 5 Mini. It's a lot less expensive than Claude Sonnet 4.5. So if you're looking for that sweet spot, you don't want the super low quality, but you want a larger variety of words and language and stuff like that in your blog post. But if you don't want to pay the cost for Sonnet 4.5, then Haiku 4.5 could be that sweet spot for you. So definitely check it out. It's added for Anthropic, direct integrations, and then also OpenWriter. You can use it in both of those. That's the first change. The second change is huge, absolutely huge. It's a change in it, but it's so subtle, I have to mention it. It's to deep research. If you've ever used deep research before, you'll know how amazing it is. It truly is an amazing feature. Problem is, though, it can get expensive. And expensive is a relative term. It could make the article cost 7 pennies, all right? It could make the article cost a quarter, all right? That's definitely relative. It's not going to be like $100 or something like that, but it can get more expensive. The main expense is each time you're hitting the API, which is going to be Perplexity, every time you're hitting that API, there's a cost associated with scraping the web. Every 1,000 scrapes, 1,000 hits to the API costs $5. And ZimmWriter divides that up and then puts that in the text file, that the article text file, so you know how much you're being charged for this. So deep research, very powerful, but it can add up in prices. Now you can turn it off, all right, for the subheadings and just use it for outline generation. But I thought, wait a second. The way SERP scraping works is SERP scraping, I'm switching gears for a second. SERP scraping, ZimmWriter will use the API to go out and scrape Google and then bring in the results. And then it will use those results, use that data to, number one, generate the outline, right? But also generate your global background information. And that global background is then going to be used as it actually writes the subheadings. But then I thought, why can't we just have ZimmWriter do that? And now we can. So if you come over here in this deep research menu and you disable deep research for subheading, background, and link generation, and you leave both of these enabled, what will happen is ZimmWriter will hit that Perplexity API, make a request to the Perplexity API, and it will generate your outline. It will generate the outline, but it will also use that information from the API, from Perplexity, that online scraped information, as the global background. That's extremely powerful because then it's effectively working at a SERP scraper. But number one, it's very fast, incredibly fast. It's pretty inexpensive because it's only making one hit to that API. And then your articles are going to be really high quality. Now, this won't work very well, just like a caveat, if you're doing 50 H2s. Let's say you're doing a listicle, 50 best places to visit in the world before you die. That global background is going to be a couple hundred words, maybe 800 words or something like that. And if that's fed into each subheading, when you have 50 subheadings, you're going to get a lot of repetition. It's not going to be as good, right? So ideally, this would be perfect for situations where you have 10 H2s or 5 H2s or something like that. Now, if you don't want ZimmWriter to do this, if you don't want ZimmWriter to use that deep research for the global background, all you have to do is leave this unchecked, leave the subheading, background, and link generation, leave that unchecked, and ZimmWriter will make an additional hit for each subheading to generate the content. Or you can just check this and that will disable it. All right, so definitely look into that, because if you don't want to get into SERP scraping because it either takes too long or too expensive, or you don't want to go through the hassle of all these different APIs, just use this. All right, very, very powerful new addition to ZimmWriter. Now, the big change is the overhaul to scraping API. Back in, let me get out of this mode and just kind of talk to you face to face. All right, a couple of years ago, and I can't believe it's been a couple of years. A couple of years ago, when I added SERP scraping and I added different types of scraping into ZimmWriter, we used something called ScrapeOwl. ScrapeOwl was good while it lasted. Let's put it that way. It's a company run by one individual. Whenever I mention the ScrapeOwl team, it's just one dude, just like me. It's just a solopreneur trying to do his thing. I've always had a good relationship with him. And occasionally, all right, the SERP scraping would break because Google would push out an update and then he would have to get onto his software and fix some things and stuff like that. Problem is, I haven't been able to contact him. I don't know where he is. Maybe he's on vacation or something like that, but it's always been a little bit of a struggle to contact him. And so SERP scraping at the moment with ScrapeOwl does not work. And so I saw the writing on the wall and I'm like, I need to fix this. But ScrapeOwl was integrated so heavily into ZimmWriter, I really didn't want to go down that route because I've gone down that route. It has taken me probably cumulative about 60 hours of coding to rework how scraping works inside of ZimmWriter. And it's been hard, but now I think we have a very, very solid foundation for the future. So let me explain how this all works. So let's go in the options menu and you'll see some new things in here. First of all, you'll see 4 or 5 dropdowns, okay? And these dropdowns will allow you to choose what tool, what scraper, or what method you want ZimmWriter to use for these different approaches. So for SERP scraping, you can either disable it or you can add a data for SEO API key or a SERPer, SERPER.dev API key. These are 2 providers that you can add. All right, add the API key for, and then enable SERP scraping. For Amazon scraping, you want to scrape Amazon products to do roundups or scrape them inside of the Penny Arcade. You can add a data for SEO API key, or you can just use ScrapeOwl. All right, ScrapeOwl continues to work for that. But if ScrapeOwl stopped working for that, then you could just get yourself a data for SEO API key. YouTube scraping right now, just data for SEO. So if you want to get YouTube videos, to insert into your article as embeds, or you want to scrape YouTube video transcripts through Penny Arcade or something, then you're going to want to get a data for SEO API key. URL scraping. Now, by default, ZimmWriter is going to use your personal computer's IP address. Or if you have a VPN that you use on your computer, you just enable the VPN and ZimmWriter will just use that VPN automatically. You don't have to configure anything. You can also add proxies. Now I can't select it because I haven't added any in this particular ZimmWriter install, but you can add proxies. Let me show you where it is. So in here, we can add proxies. Now the proxy provider that I recommend, and I built this around, is Oxylabs. I looked at all the different proxy providers, dirt cheap, very inexpensive. They even give you some free data center proxies that you can use. I don't think there's even a limit. You can just sign up for an account. You could use these free proxies. You input them in here. You can read the directions on how to do all this by clicking this link up here. It will take you to my page. It kind of details everything you need to know about this. All right, but Oxylabs definitely works. I would assume other proxy providers work too, but your mileage is going to vary on those. What proxies will allow you to do is scrape those URLs. You can scrape just normal URLs with proxies if you want to, but you can also download images using those proxies. Now, when might you download images? Inside of ZimmWriter, there's something called Scraping Surgeon. And in Scraping Surgeon, you can add some CSS tags and classes or HTML tags to identify various elements on a page for a particular domain. Maybe like the domain is tricky for the AI to scrape because there's just all kinds of extraneous information, like an Amazon page, for instance. There's all this extraneous information. So how do you have the AI parse that and just pull out the relevant information? That's where Scraping Surgeon comes in. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you can identify the image CSS class or ID of the image itself or like a parent element. And when ZimmWriter goes to write the article for the Penny Arcade or for a product roundup, it will download that image to your personal computer. Now, we're not talking about copyright issues right now. That's on you to figure all out. But ZimmWriter can download that image for you, and then you can upload it to your WordPress site or something. Now, those images, if you're downloading them using your personal IP, it's probably not a great idea if you're scraping Amazon or something like that. So I would recommend either you get behind a VPN or you use your proxy. All right, so you add those proxies, and ZimmWriter will download those images using those proxies, okay? So your IP is protected. You can also use ScrapeOwl for downloading those images. Unfortunately, data for SEO does not have the ability to download images. It's just not in there. Let's go back to URL scraping. So we can scrape using our personal IP, whether that's your IP at the ISP that you have, or you're behind a VPN, it will scrape using that IP address. Or you could scrape via proxies. And I guess proxies are also important if you're like in a country like maybe Russia or China that a lot of websites might put more scrutiny on because there's a lot of people in China, for instance. I'm not singling you out if you're in China. I'm sure you're a great individual, but there's a lot of state actors and whatnot that are doing a lot of scraping from there. Like Cloudflare and whatnot will put a lot more scrutiny on IP addresses from those geolocations. Okay, so proxies can help you out with that. You can also use data for SEO, and you can use ScrapeOwl. Now, I talk more about this inside of this article here, but the long story short is sometimes some URLs can be scraped just with a general IP address, but sometimes the site will still block you regardless of where your IP is originating from. Like even if it's my personal IP address, if I try to scrape Amazon or I try to scrape a particular website, it still might be blocked. And in situations like that, something called a headless browser needs to be run on the page. And so there's providers, data for SEO and ScrapeOwl, that will actually run that headless browser. It's technical. You don't need to worry about that. That's all behind the scenes, but they'll actually have a browser in code that will go out to the web page, load everything on the page, and then scrape the data. And sometimes that will enable the data to be successfully scraped. So in situations like that, if you're trying to scrape one of those URLs, you might need to use one of these providers. Your personal IP or a proxy might not do it. And then finally, Amazon scraping. These are the two providers that do that. So this is where you select what's going to do what. And if you had data for SEO, you could do everything aside from image scraping if you wanted to. You can enter those API keys over here. So you can click this link, go to data for SEO, and enter that information. You can click this link and go to ScrapeOwl and enter your information. You click this link and go to Serper and enter your information. Serper is interesting. It's very fast. They give you 2,500 credits at the time of making this video, completely for free. I don't think you need a credit card. So that's a great option, but that's just for SERP. That's just going to unlock SERP scraping. ScrapeOwl, it's going to unlock everything aside from YouTube scraping and SERP scraping. Data for SEO, if you get a key for that, it's going to unlock everything aside from image downloading. AI images are fine. I'm just talking about those scraping surgeon tagged images that you want ZimmWriter to then download. A couple caveats about data for SEO, and I talk about it inside of here. Also see the scraping domain settings over here. And these are settings that ZimmWriter will put domains in here and populate them depending on different things. It might automatically try to render them using different settings. You can read more about it in this guide here. But it's more of an advanced thing, and you don't really have to mess with this that much, but it does open some more avenues for you to get data scraped from particular sites. And the last big thing, and this is a huge, huge thing, is the update to Scraping Surgeon. It looks identical to how it's looked in the past, but previously you could only use this if you had ScrapeOwl. And what this will do, I mentioned this before, is you can tell ZimmWriter where on a page the information is found. And whenever it scrapes a web page on that domain, it will pull just that information. This is extremely powerful. Before, it only worked with ScrapeOwl because ScrapeOwl had this feature. So ZimmWriter didn't really do this. ScrapeOwl did it and returned the results when I fed it this information. I made ZimmWriter do this now. So you don't need ScrapeOwl to do this. You don't need data for SEO to do this. ZimmWriter can do it just with your own personal IP address. Now, it's not going to get past hard to scrape sites, but needless to say, Scraping Surgeon now works natively regardless of whatever scraping service you're using. That's extremely powerful because you can do some amazing things with this. Amazing, amazing things. As an example, data for SEO has their own Amazon scraper built into it or something like that. It's not as good as this. When I have ZimmWriter use data for SEO to scrape Amazon, I don't use their Amazon API. I use their normal API, and we process it all through Scraping Surgeon because we get better results. So if you haven't learned about Scraping Surgeon, you really should, because depending on your use case, it can be very, very powerful. And I don't think any other AI writer in the world has something like this. Definitely read up on it and check it out. That is all of it for the updates. I tell you, I'm exhausted. I spent, like I said, like 60 some hours coding this because ScrapeOwl was so heavily integrated. And now I have kind of like a plug and play solution. So data for SEO is rock solid. I think they've been around for decades. But if I ever needed to add another scraping API, it wouldn't be hard. But don't come to me and say, oh, add this one, add this one, add this one. I think we have a good mix in here. There's another one on my radar, but I think we have a good mix to accomplish just about whatever you want to accomplish with AI. And in the context of getting stuff done, definitely make sure to check out the Facebook group. Just recently, I shared some tidbits about an individual who had generated 50,000 Amazon product roundups last month for over 200 ZimmWriter sites, and they are making bank. They are making absolute bank with the results. I know the person personally. It's not me. I don't have time at the moment, But they're actually making more than me doing that using ZimmWriter than I am making ZimmWriter. So I'm reassessing my priorities at the moment. But definitely check out the Facebook group and the Discord group. Get on there. There's lots of great information being shared. But that's it for the update. I hope you like it. Drop a comment down below if you have any questions or ask inside the groups. Other than that, hey, good luck with your content generation, and I'll talk to you later.